amazing women on tonight. It's debate night. Y'all ready for it? It is absolutely debate night. And I don't know. It's going to be pretty interesting. It's going to be pretty interesting. I think for me, I don't know what, I'm trying to get it together to even know what to say, but I tell you what, we're going to tell the truth about it, regardless of what we talk about. We're going to talk the truth tonight, and we're not going to be long because everybody got to find the seat and get the popcorn ready. I'm just going to be honest. I'm just going to put it out there, and I'm going to be honest, and I'm going to say, I am interested in hearing what foolish stuff Trump is going to say tonight. I'm just sorry. I want to hear what insane idea he has about why he paid $750 in taxes. I've definitely paid more than $750 in taxes. And I don't even make a lot of money.
Listen, there's nothing to say. We know why.
Yeah, listen, I've got some great women with me tonight, none other than the amazing community activist. She is power all by herself, an elder in the community. You know I'm talking about you, Erin Dale.
You said an
She's
elder
doing
in the
some
community.
amazing things.
Sister Pay, that was like, you talking about one of us, elder?
No, I'm talking about this sense of
I think we
are literally passing batons on, right? We've done our work 10, 15 years ago, right? And it's time for us to pass this on to the great youth of today. And definitely want to make sure that we're doing that. And so I'm excited about it. So of course we always have Miss Alicia Peaton of Phoenix Partners NC, because Alicia tells us like it is so that we can build and be well, right? That's what she does.
Absolutely.
So she gives us that mental health perspective, because as we were talking, and we're going to get into a couple of points, and I'm going to make sure I've got the live part here, guys. So bear with me as I'm going to pull the live stream up for the debate in just a second, because we don't want to miss it. And there's commentary, and I'm going to share my screen. So nothing's going on right now in the debate. The debate stage is clear. Everybody's sitting waiting. And and so, so listen, let's get into the meat of this. Erin, tell us what you're doing right now in community, because you do a lot of things.
I want to say well, first of all, thank you, sister, for creating the venue. Thank you, Sister Peyton, for your time this evening as well, holding space. I'm grateful for the opportunity to be with you. I want to give deep love to the ancestors and to the Creator for being able to get, me this far, us this far today.
Yeah.
Ooh, and even over the evening, because in so many ways, what is happening in this country is a traumatizing experience, super traumatizing experience. And as we watch the debate, let us ground ourselves in the long struggle of our ancestors that we're a part of, and let's remember that we will overcome. This time is going to end and a new time will begin. And, ground ourselves in the knowing of that, the clear knowing of that. Look at what they've done to the moment, right? It's such an opening. It's a traumatic and painful experience in many ways, but then also because of the chaos, clarity brings openings. And so, we want to just put our minds and our hearts to that. This evening, I'm doing that to myself. I'm sort of grounding myself as I'm saying these things. So yeah, I want to start there. And then to the question of, I'm gonna take a moment there too. I'm gonna take a couple of breaths there and just say a couple of more thank yous, because my heart is pounding.
Yeah, yeah. It's in the atmosphere.
Yeah. So we want to. The most important thing I'm doing right now is I'm the president of a local food cooperative called Fertile Ground that's in the organizing phase. And the reason that that's the most important thing that I think I'm doing here in my own community is because I believe that the people in the community should govern the institutions that impact their lives, be that their schools, the police, their food systems, their environment, the regulatory agencies that determine how much pollution comes in and out of our communities, all of those things that people should be governing. And we're up against a real trick, that we aren't the governing, that they've stolen so much. They lie, they manipulate, and they're corrupt. And so it makes it a real challenge for us to own our place as rulers, I guess I want to say. I really want to kind of put that like as the governing, as the people with the full power when fully organized to do what, to call forward the power over the institutions in our lives. And we have to build those alternatives.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. They have entered the stage.
All right.
And so I want us to, I promise that we would stay on top of this. And we can come back. I'm trying to see if
and the Senate's to consider a nominee to the court. Vice President Biden, you say that this is an effort by the president and Republicans to jam through an appointment and what you call an abuse of power. My first question to both of you tonight, what take in this first segment, you go first, 2 minutes.
Thank you very much, Chris. I will tell you very simply, we won the election. Elections have consequences. We have the Senate, we have the White House, and we have a phenomenal nominee, respected by all, top academic, good in every way. In fact, some of her biggest endorsers are very liberal people from Notre Dame and other places. So I think she's going to be fantastic. We have plenty of time. Even if we did it after the election itself. I have a lot of time after the election, as you know. So I think that she will be outstanding. She's going to be as good as anybody that has served on that court. We really feel that we have a professor at Notre Dame, highly respected by all, said she's the single greatest student he's ever had. He's been a professor for a long time at a great school. And we won the election, and therefore we have the right to choose her. And very few people knowingly would say otherwise. And by the way, the Democrats, they wouldn't even think about not doing it. If they had, the only difference is they try and do it faster. There's no way they would give it up. They had Merrick Garland, but the problem is they didn't have the election. So they were stopped. And probably that would happen in reverse also. Definitely would happen in reverse. So we won the election and we have the right to do it, Chris.
President Trump, thank you. Same question to you, Vice President Biden. You have 2 minutes.
Well, first of all, thank you for doing this and looking forward to this, Mr. President.
Thank you, Joe.
The American people have a right to have a say in who the Supreme Court nominee is. And that say occurs when they vote for a United States senators and when they vote for the President of the United States. They're not going to get that chance now because we're in the middle of an election already. The election has already started. Tens of thousands of people have already voted. And so the thing that should happen is we should wait. We should wait and see what the outcome of this election is, because that's the only way the American people get to express their view is by who they elect as president and who they elect as vice president. Now, what's at stake here is the president's made it clear he wants to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. He's been running on that, he ran on that, and he's been governing on that. He's in the Supreme Court right now trying to get rid of the Affordable Care Act, which will strip 20 million people having insurance, health insurance now, if it goes into court. And the justice, and I'm not opposed to the justice, she seems like a very fine person. But she's written before she went on the bench, which is her right, that she thinks that Affordable Care Act is not constitutional. The other thing is on the court, and if it's struck down, what happens? Women's rights are fundamentally changed. Once again, a woman could be held pay more money because she has a pre-existing condition of pregnancy. They were able to charge a woman more for the same exact procedure a man gets. And that ended when we, in fact, passed the Affordable Care Act. And there's 100 million people who have pre-existing conditions, and they'll be taken away as well. Those pre-existing conditions, the insurance companies are going to love this. And so it's just not appropriate to do this before this election. If he wins the election and the Senate is Democrat or Republican, then he goes forward. If not, we should wait until February. All right.
There aren't 100 million people with pre-existing conditions. As far as the say is concerned, the people already had their say. Justice Ginsburg said very powerfully, very strongly, at some point, 10 years ago or so, she said a president and the Senate is elected for a period of time, but a president's elected for 4 years. We're not elected for 3 years. I'm not elected for 3 years. So we have the Senate, we have a president.
It's elected to the next
during
election.
that period of time, we have an opening. I'm not elected for 3 years. I'm elected for 4 years. And the 100 million people, Joe, the 100 million people is totally wrong. I don't know where you got that number. The bigger problem that you have is that you're going to extinguish 180 million people with their private health care that they're very
That's
happy
simply
with.
not true.
Well, you're certainly going to socialist. You're going to socialist medicine.
We're now into, gentlemen, we're now into open discussion.
Open discussion.
Open discussion. Yes, I agree. Go ahead, Vice President.
Number one, he knows that what I proposed. What I proposed is that we expand Obamacare and we increase it. We do not wipe any. And one of the big debates we had with 23 of my colleagues trying to win the nomination that I won, we're saying that Biden wanted to allow people to have private insurance still. They can. They do. They will under my proposal.
It's not what you said,
But
and it's not what
that
your party has said.
That is simply
Your party
a lie.
doesn't say it. Your party
is
wants to
simple.
go socialist
My
medicine
party is
and
me.
socialist
Right
healthcare.
now, I am
And
the
they're going to
Democratic
dominate
Party.
you, Joe. You know that.
I am the Democratic Party right now. The platform of the
Not according
Democratic
to
Party
Harris.
is what I, in fact, approved of. What I approved of. Now, here's the deal. The deal is that it's going to wipe out pre-existing conditions. And by the way, the 200,000 people that have died on his watch, how many of those? Well, there's 7 million people that contracted COVID. What does it mean for them going forward if you strike down the Care Act? And
Joe, you've had 308,000 military people dying because you couldn't provide them proper health care in the military. So don't tell me
I'm
about
happy
this.
to talk about.
And if you were here,
Look,
it
here's
wouldn't
the
be
deal.
200, it would be 2 million people because you were very late on the draw. You
Late
didn't
on
want
the
me to
draw.
ban China, which was heavily infected. You didn't want me to ban
All right, gentlemen.
Europe, which
no,
was
Mr. President.
You would have
Mr.
been much
President,
later, Joe.
Mr. President.
Much later.
Mr.
You're
President.
talking about 2 million people.
You're not gonna be able to
President, as
shut
a
him up.
moderator, we are going to talk about COVID in the next segment, but go ahead.
Let me finish. The point is that the president also is opposed to Roe v. Wade. That's on the ballot as well in the court. And so that's also at stake right now. And so the election is all
You don't know it's on the ballot. Why is it on the ballot?
Because
Why is it
you
on the
said
ballot? It's not
you're-
on the ballot.
It's on the ballot in the
I
court.
don't think so.
In the court. Well,
There's nothing happening there.
Donald, would you
And you
just
don't
be quiet
know
for a minute?
her view on Roe v. Wade. You
I
don't
don't
know
know.
her view.
Well, all right. Let's talk. I would
It's like I'm watching my children.
out of time. So
Yeah, I'm sitting here saying.
I'm watching my
Joe's-
sons fight each other in the back of the car as I'm driving
Supreme Court
to
rule here,
the grocery store.
a week
Absolutely.
after the election, in which the Trump administration, along with 18 state attorneys general, are seeking to overturn
That's right.
Obamacare, to end Obamacare. You have spent the last
Because they want to give good health care.
If I may ask
Go
my
ahead.
question, sir.
Good health care.
Over the last 4 years, you have promised to repeal and replace Obamacare, but you have never in these 4 years come up with a plan, a comprehensive plan
Yes,
to
I have.
replace Obamacare.
Of course I have.
Well, I'll
I
give
got
you
rid
an
of the
opportunity. And when I
individual
finish, I'm
mandate.
gonna give
Aaron,
you
I'm
an
loving
opportunity.
you
I got
sitting
rid of
here
the individual
eating
mandate, which
like
was a big
everybody is doing at
compromise.
home. I'm
It's
loving it.
absolutely a
They
big
see
It's pure theater. It's
Yes,
pure
it
theater.
is.
I mean,
They can't see me because I'm on mute because I have a loud chopping noise I make.
Oh, hold on, no, Aaron, they see you a little bit. When you talk, it goes to you.
And I would like you to let me answer.
Right, that's why I have to come in and off mute.
You,
Yeah.
in the course of these 4 years, have never come up with a comprehensive plan to replace. And just this last Thursday, you signed a largely symbolic executive order to protect people with pre-existing conditions 5 days before this debate. So my question, sir, is what is the Trump healthcare plan?
Well, first of all, I guess I'm debating you, not him, but that's okay. I'm not surprised. Let me just tell you something, that there's nothing symbolic.
Joe has got to
I'm cutting
step
drug
it
prices and
up.
going with favored nations.
And your
the
mama's
president
ugly
has
too.
encouraged, because prices will be coming down 80 or 90%. You could have done it during your 47-year period in government, but you didn't do it.
He is hit.
Nobody's done it. So we're cutting health care.
What about
All of the things that we've done.
He has not
Insulin.
cut
I give you an example.
Right. All he has is
Insulin. It's
insults
going to-
because
it
he
was
has no
just-
content. He has no
because
substance.
I'm getting it for so cheap. It's like water. You want to know the truth. So cheap. Take a look at all of the drugs that what we're doing, prescription drug prices. We're going to allow our governors now to go to other countries to buy drugs
Okay.
because
When in
they
fact-
pay just a tiny
As
fraction.
I say,
of
this
what
is
we do.
open discussion.
No,
Let me
but
ask
this
you
is
about,
big- this
you'll
is
be
big
happy,
stuff.
sir. You'll be happy. I'm about to pick up on one of your points to ask the vice president, which is he points out that you would like to add a public option to Obamacare. And
Yes.
the argument that he makes and other Republicans make is that that is going to end private insurance.
It is
And
not.
well, I can
Sorry.
ask you the question. It will
Not what your
end.
party says, by the way.
It will end private insurance and create a government takeover.
Give me
of
back my
healthcare.
toy.
Only for those people so-called they qualify for Medicaid, they can get that free.
Oh,
In
Oh,
most states, governors want
I'ma
to
tell
deny
mama.
yeah, I know.
Medicaid. Anyone who qualifies for Medicare would, excuse me,
But
Medicaid.
we knew that this was going to be middle school and schoolyard. We knew that, you know.
I really thought
in that
that Joe would
Number one.
Joe, you
understand.
agree with Bernie
You
Sanders.
be presidential, but you got to come with a little bit more fire and a little bit more aggression to fight.
But
this.
but the reality is it's very difficult to do when you have someone who's going to continue to sound like a second grader. Like there's no real
Exactly.
debate
There's
here.
no
You
real
can't- you
debate. There's
can't.
no exactly.
I mean, Joe Biden,
They
whatever
hate each other.
for whatever you think of his politics, he has been through debates. He knows how to do this with someone who's serious. I mean, Trump is like someone that's sitting there and he's just continually trying to find points of jab. There's no, I mean, if you listen to him, it's going to be filled with emptiness and superlatives, a verb here and there, and that's going to be the end of it.
Yeah,
Right.
this is your thing tonight, from a mental standpoint.
Oh my goodness. Where do I begin? This is the DSM-5 exploded. What are you talking about?
She said the DSM-5 exploded.
I mean, he's a whole new diagnosis all by himself. A whole new diagnosis.
Folks,
Absolutely.
folks, do you have any
Remember that
idea
thing
what
of
this
socialized,
clown's
they
doing?
call it
Oh, very good, Joe.
socialized medicine.
Mr.
I'll
President,
tell you what, he is not for any help for people needing health care.
Absolutely.
Because he in fact already has cost 10 million people their health care that they had from their employers because of his recession. Number one. Number two,
Yeah.
there are 20 million people
Did he just say,
getting
"Oh, yeah,
healthcare
you're
through
right"?
Obamacare now that he wants to take
'Cause
it
he's-
away. He won't ever look you in the eye and say that's what he
Help
wants
us,
to do.
Jesus.
Take it away.
No, I want to give them
Number
better
three.
health care at a much lower price
But-
because
and by the way-
Obamacare.
So
Stop
he-
interrupting. He interrupts like a 3-year-old.
But that's all he has. When you have no substance, this is
He needs to say, the
gaslighting at its
facilitator needs
finest.
to call him.
Right. But here's the thing. He'll just argue with Chris Wallace.
Care is no good. We made it.
I
better.
mean,
A choice to make.
after a while, he's gonna argue with himself. What? I mean, really?
Pre-existing conditions, but took away the individual mandate. Listen, this is the way it is. And that destroyed, that they shouldn't even call it Obamacare. Then I had a choice to make. Do I let my people run it really well or badly? If I run it badly, they'll probably blame him, but they'll blame me. But more importantly, I want to help people. Okay. I said, you got to run it so well.
That's what
And I just had a meeting with them. They said,
I want to help people.
well, you run Obamacare.
Outlandish lie right there. Okay.
It's too expensive.
I got you.
Premiums are too high. and it doesn't work.
That's
So
what his people
we
said.
do want to get rid of it. Chris, we want to get rid of it.
I understand it, sir, but I have to.
Cheaper.
Didn't I tell you
Chris,
that
do
at
you
some
think,
point
Chris?
he was going to argue with the moderator?
He
Yes.
has no plan for healthcare.
Of course we do.
I'm telling you, if no one knows what gaslighting looks like,
People thinking
this is it.
executive orders have no power. He hasn't lowered drug costs for anybody. He's been promising a healthcare plan since he got elected. He has none, like almost everything else he talks about. He does not have a plan. He doesn't have a plan. And the fact is, this man doesn't know what he's talking about.
Absolutely.
I have one final question for you,
Sure.
Mr. Vice President. If Senate Republicans, we were talking originally about the Supreme Court here, if Senate Republicans go ahead and confirm Justice Barrett, there has been talk about ending the filibuster or even packing the court, adding to the 9 justices there. You call this a distraction by the president, but in fact, it wasn't brought up by the president. It was brought up by some of your Democratic colleagues in the Congress. So my question to you is, you have refused in the past to talk about it. Are you willing to tell the American people tonight whether or not you will support either ending the filibuster or packing the court?
Whatever position I take in that, that'll become the issue. The issue is the American people should speak. You should go out and vote.
Please
You're
vote,
voting
guys.
now. Vote and let your senators know how
Are you gonna
strongly
pack
you
the
feel.
court?
And tomorrow's the last day for the
Vote now.
census
Make sure
registration.
you, in fact,
Yes, it
let
is.
people know.
He
Yes,
doesn't
it
want to
is.
answer the question.
I'm not going to answer the question
Why would
because
you answer that
because
question?
the question
You put a
is-
lot of
the
new
question
Supreme Court
is-
justice,
the
radical
question-
left.
will you
Who
shut
is
up,
your,
man?
listen, who is on your list, Joe?
This is
Gentlemen, I think
This is-
Where is the
Highlight. Okay, sorry. That was so rude, Joe. Thank you very much.
keep yapping.
This is
People understand.
so
They should.
47 years, you've done nothing. They understand.
unprecedented.
It is. But this is the trap that happens when you allow someone to pull you down into the gutter.
7 million cases.
When
of
they go low,
coronavirus.
we go high.
Yeah. Yeah,
1,000 people
yeah.
I know Michelle's
died.
probably
After we produce
she's probably
Michelle said
thinking,
she agreed.
Joe,
She was
no.
just like, I understand. Now she's probably like, I understand.
She said, I get it.
understand.
I'm feeling it.
It is what it is.
question for you is, based on what you have said and done so far and what you have said you would do starting in 2021, why should the American people trust you more than your opponent to deal with this public health crisis going forward? In this case, the question goes to you first, sir. 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Good luck. 200,000 dead.
What?
You said over 7 million infected in the United States. We, in fact, have 5%, 4% of the world's population, 20% of the deaths. 40,000 people a day are contracting COVID. In addition to that, about between 750 and 1,000 people a day are dying. When he was presented with that number, he said, it is what it is. Well, it is what it is because you are who you are. That's why it is. The president has no
That was a
plan.
good point.
He hasn't laid
Very
out
good point.
anything. He knew all the way back in February how serious this crisis was. He knew it was a deadly disease. What did he do? He's on tape as acknowledging he knew it. He said he didn't tell us or give people a warning of it because he didn't want to panic the American people. You don't panic. He panicked. In
Casey,
addition
you
to
should have
that,
been on here
what
with
did he
us.
do? He went in and we were insisting that the Chinese, the people we had on the ground in China should be able to go to Wuhan and determine for themselves how dangerous this was. He did not even ask Xi to do that. He told us what a great job Xi was doing. He said we owe him a debt of gratitude for being so transparent with us. And what did he do then? He then did nothing. He waited and waited and waited. He still doesn't have a plan.
Wrong.
I laid out
Sir,
back in
it's 2
March exactly
So
what we
wrong.
should be doing. And I laid out again in July what we
3
should
year old.
we should be providing all the protective gear possible. We should be providing the money the House has passed in order to be able
His
to go
face,
out
though.
and
It's his face.
people the
I
help
know.
they need
I
to
know.
He doesn't even have to listen to what people are saying. Just look at his
Get out of
face.
your bunker and get out of the sand trap and get in your golf course and go in the Oval Office and bring together the Democrats and Republicans and fund what needs to be
Yes,
done
he
now to
did.
save lives.
So if we would have
He
listened,
did.
You have 2 minutes, sir.
if we would have listened to you the country would have been left wide open.
Oh,
Millions of
shut
people
up.
died, not
Oh,
200,000.
I'm sorry. I'm doing what he.
One person is too much. It's China's fault. It should have never happened. They stopped it from going in, but it was China's fault. And by the way, when you talk about numbers, you don't know how many people died in China. You don't know how many
You don't
people
know.
died in.
You don't know.
They didn't exactly give you a straight count, just so you understand. But if you look at what we've done, I closed it and you said he's xenophobic. He's a racist and he's xenophobic because you didn't think we should have closed our country. Wait a minute.
It says 2
2
minutes.
You
minutes.
didn't think we should have closed our country because you thought it was too
Screaming
terrible.
baby. There's
You
a
wouldn't have
screaming
closed it for
baby.
another 2 months. By my doing it early, in fact,
Breathe,
Dr.
Joe.
Fauci said President
breathe.
Trump saved thousands of lives. Many of you Democrat governors said President Trump did a phenomenal job. We worked with the governor. Oh, really? Go take a look. The governors said I did a phenomenal job. Most of them said that. In fact, people that would not be necessarily on my side said that. President Trump
We
did
have
a
to look for
phenomenal
those people. They don't exist.
We got the gowns, we got the masks, we made the ventilators. You wouldn't have made ventilators. And now we're weeks away from a vaccine. We're doing therapeutics already.
I
Fewer
don't even know what a
people are
ventilator
dying
is.
when they get sick. Far fewer people are dying. We've done a great job. The only thing I haven't done a good job, and that's because of the fake news. No matter what you say to them, they
The real news.
give you bad press on it. It's just fake news. They give you
Real
good
news.
press. They give me bad press because that's the way it is, unfortunately. But
Oh,
let me just
my
tell you something. I don't
goodness.
care. I've
He
got
didn't earn none of his press.
Mm-mm.
Good job, Joe. He didn't interrupt.
I do. I know how to get the job.
Well, you didn't do
done.
very well in swine flu. H1N1, you were a disaster. Your own chief of staff said you were a disaster.
14,000 people died, not 200,000. There was
A
no
very-
economic recession.
Sir, you made a
You folks at home, how many of you get up
Oh, no. Sorry, guys.
this morning
Oh.
and had an empty chair at the kitchen table because someone died of COVID? How many of you were in a situation where you lost your mom or dad and you couldn't even speak to them? You had a nurse holding a phone up so you could, in fact, say
You would
goodbye.
have lost far,
Good
more people.
point.
Far
That is-
more people.
And
You would have been
And by the way,
months late.
your own
You were
his
months behind me,
his
Joe.
own
I had a
CDC
family member
director
who
says
died.
we could lose another 200,000 people between now and the end of the year. And he held up, he said, if we just wear a mask, we can save half those numbers, just a mask. And by the way, in terms of the whole notion of a vaccine, we're for a vaccine, but I don't trust him at all, nor do you. I know you don't. What we trust is a scientist.
You don't
we
trust
Dr.
Thank you.
Johnson,
Fauci.
Johnson, Pfizer.
And
Okay,
by the way,
gentlemen, let me move on to questions about the future because you both have touched on two of the questions I'm going to ask. Focusing on the future first, President Trump, you have repeatedly either contradicted or been at odds with some of your government's own top scientists. The week before
Okay.
last, the head of the Centers for Disease Control, Dr. Redfield, said it would be summer before the vaccine would become generally available to the public. You said that he was confused and mistaken. Those were your two words.
Yeah.
But Dr. Slaoui, the head of your Operation Warp Speed, has said exactly the same thing. Are they both wrong?
Well, I've spoken to the companies and we can have it a lot sooner. It's a very political thing because people like this would rather make it political than save lives. It is a very political thing. I've spoken to Pfizer. I've spoken to
Call on the
all of
Lord, Joe.
Moderna, Johnson and Johnson and others. They can go faster than that by a lot. Become very political because the left, or I don't know if I call
So
them
you're
left, I don't know
suggesting
what I
that the
call them.
head of your Operation Warp Speed, Dr. Slaoui,
I disagree with him. Yeah, no, I disagree with both of them. And he didn't say that. He said it could be there, but it could also be much sooner. I had him in my office 2 days ago.
He talked about the summer, sir, before it's generally available. Just like
He
Dr.
said it's a
Redfield.
possibility that we'll have the answer.
And I knew Chris Wallace was going to fact check
It
him
could also
in
be
his
evidence
own way.
Available.
I knew that.
delivered right away. We have the military all set up logistically. They're all set up. We have our military that
Somebody said
delivers
they wanted
soldiers,
debates
and
will
they can do
increase voter
200,000 a
turnout.
day. They're going
It
to.
better.
same man.
It's
who
all
told
set
you
up.
This is what we're signing up for 4 more years.
warm weather would be gone. Miraculous. Like
And
a
if nothing else, if it's not the people who are watching, because typically the people who are watching have already decided what they're going to do. It's being empowered to go out there and talk to people and convince those who have completely tuned out.
serious Every serious company is talking about maybe having a vaccine done by the end of the year, but the distribution of that vaccine will not occur until sometime beginning or the middle of next year.
The question is, do you want to explain this man to your children as your leader?
Well, you don't have to explain it. We can't even allow them to watch. Like the stuff
I
that,
mean,
like,
No, you say the
come on. How can you tell your children to not degrade other people, to not call people names, to
that's
not
on my
be
point.
rude,
To not grab
interrupt,
people in places
to not
they shouldn't be touching them.
touching them inappropriately, to not own up on anything that they do? Tell me, of all the deadly sins, which one we did not touch?
And you're running contributing to the fear.
No more than the question you just asked him. You pointed out. He puts
I
pressure
love y'all.
and disagrees
Right.
with his own scientists.
But you're
Right,
saying
you pointed it out.
Harris is saying you can't.
Oh, well, no, you can't trust.
She's
the
not even a,
scientists. She didn't say that. You can't trust.
She said the public health
Just say
experts
that.
quote will be muzzled, will be
Yes.
suppressed.
Well, that's what he's going to try to do. But there's millions of scientists, there's thousands of scientists out there, like here at this great hospital, that don't work for him. Their job doesn't depend on him. That's
Okay.
not. They're the people. They're and
Good
by the way,
point, Joe.
The
Good point.
scientists that are in charge,
the way,
they will have the vaccine very soon.
does-
Let him finish.
do you believe for a moment what he's telling you in light of all the
There you
lies
go.
he's told you about
There you
the
go.
Good
whole
job,
issue
Joe.
Talk to the
relating
people.
COVID? He still hasn't even acknowledged that he knew this was happening, knew how dangerous it was going to be back in February, and he didn't even tell you. He's on record as saying it. He panicked or he just looked at the stock market, one of the two, because guess what? A lot of people died and a lot more are going to die unless he gets a
There you
lot
go.
smarter, a lot quicker.
So-
Mr. President,
Did you use the word smart? So you said you went to Delaware State, but you forgot the name of your college.
please
You
don't
didn't go
do
to
that.
Delaware
Please go back to the issues, Biden. Go right back to the issues, Biden.
Go back to
Use the word
it.
smart.
Yes.
Come on, Biden.
No, no,
Call
no.
him
Show him a moral
back
center,
to the
Biden.
issue.
Show him.
You know what?
Show him a moral center. That's what we're trying to. This is what we're looking for. We don't need a child as the president any longer.
There you go.
George. Our country. And by the way, now it's being built again.
See,
And
we're
it's
going to
going
get
up
to the
fast.
economy in the next segment, sir.
okay.
It's going up
Yeah,
fast.
Okay.
just-
When it comes to how the virus has been handled so far, the two of you have taken very different approaches, and this is going to the virus going forward, whichever of you ends up becoming next president. Through several of those reopenings, Vice President Biden, you have been much more reluctant than Trump about reopening.
Sorry. I'm
The economy and schools. Why, sir?
Because he doesn't have a plan. If I were running, I know what the plan is. You've got to provide these businesses the ability to have the money to be able to reopen with the PPE as well as with the sanitation they need. You have to
Tell
provide
that to
them
Nancy
plastic.
Pelosi.
Well, he's just shush for a minute.
Tell it to Nancy
You know,
Pelosi. And
and
Schumer,
by the
Brian
way,
Chuck.
Nancy Pelosi and Schumer, they have a plan. He won't even meet with them. The Republicans won't meet with the
Okay.
Senate. And he sits on his golf course. And, well, I mean,
No.
literally,
Okay.
think about it.
You probably
All right,
play
think
more than
about
I do, Joe.
What about this question of reopenings and the fact?
Well, he wants to
Right,
shut
we
down
can't have
this
a we
country.
can't have a conversation.
I want to keep it open. And we
You
did a
just-
great
he just
thing by
admitted
shutting
he
it
shut
down.
it down.
Wait a minute, Joe.
Let him
Let me
finish,
shut you down for a second, Joe, just for 1 second. He wants to shut down the country. We just went through it. We had to because we didn't know anything about the disease. Now we found that elderly people with heart problems and diabetes and different problems are very, very vulnerable. We learned a lot. Young children aren't.
Say the course,
Even
Biden.
younger
Just
people
say the course, man. You already got my vote, so make me feel good about it. Make me feel really good
By
about it.
continuing, if you look at Pennsylvania, if you look at some states that have been shut down, they have Democrat governors all. One of the reasons they're shut down is because they want to keep it shut down until after the election.
Oh,
All right,
yeah.
I want
November
to
3rd.
move on to another
Because
subject.
it's a
I want to move
political
on to another
I gotta
subject.
respond.
But those states are not doing well that are shut down
Which is
right now.
Gotta respond to that.
President
We already know he's a liar, Biden. Just say something about
the
that.
effectiveness of masks as a disease preventer, and in fact, recently you have cited the
Yeah,
issue of
nail his ass on
waiters
that one.
touching their masks, and touching
Mhm.
planes. Are you questioning
No, I think
the
masks are
efficacy
okay.
of
You have to
masks?
understand, if you look, I mean, I have a mask right here. I put a mask on, when I think I need it. Tonight, as an example,
When I
everybody's
think I
had a
need it.
test and you've had social distancing and all of the things that you have to, but I
Just
wear
like your
masks
rally.
when needed. When needed, I wear masks.
Okay, let me ask.
I don't wear a mask like him. Every time you see him, he's got a mask. He could be speaking 200 feet away from it. He shows up with the biggest mask I've ever seen. I will say
Vice President Biden, go ahead, sir.
Look, the way to open businesses is give them the wherewithal to be able to open. We provided money. The
But I
Congress,
was asking you about masks.
well, masks make a big difference. His own head of the CDC said if we just wore masks between now, everybody wore masks and social distance between now and January, we'd probably save up to 100,000 lives. It matters.
And they've also
It
said the
matters.
opposite. They've
And
also said
no serious person said the opposite.
They've
No.
also said,
Mm.
What
There
Fauci
you go. There you
said
go.
No serious person said the opposite.
are not good. Then he changed his mind. He said masks good. I'm
wanna
okay with masks.
Don't
I'm gonna
even-
ask one last-
Joe,
because-
he looks like a 3-year-old. We're sorry you're in there with the 3-year-old. We're sorry we voted to put you up there on the stage with this 3-year-old. We all
Yeah.
apologize.
I'm sorry.
Stay the course, Biden.
Vice President Biden, you are holding much smaller events with
Because nobody will show up.
people with.
What's true? Nobody shows up to his rally.
All right. In any case, why you?
Empty
holding a big rally?
inauguration.
You go, sir.
Because people want to hear what I have to say. I mean,
But are you
I
not
did a
worried
great
about
job
spreading
as a
the wave?
president, and I'll have 25, 35,000 people show up at airports. We use airports.
Are you
for
not
hangars.
worried about
We
the
have a
disease
lot of
issue,
people.
sir?
Well, so far, we have had no problem whatsoever. It's outside. That's a big difference, according to the experts. And we do them outside. We have tremendous crowds, as you see. I mean, every
The experts I don't listen to.
notice. And Joe does the circles and has 3 people someplace.
Okay.
By the way, did you see
Gotcha.
one of the last big rallies he had? And a reporter came up to him to ask him a question. He said, no, stand back. All right, put on your mask. Put on a mask. Have you been tested? I'm way far away from those other people. That's what he said. I'm going to be okay. He's not worried about you. He's not worried about the people out there breathing on one another.
We've had no negative effect.
No negative effect.
We've had no negative effect. And we've had 35,
He-
40,000.
Repeat it.
Wanna just
Yes.
quickly
He's
finish
had
up?
no negative.
Yes, I would. He's been totally irresponsible the way in which he has handled the social distancing and people wearing masks, basically encourage them not to.
All right.
Ben, he's a fool on this.
If you could get the crowds, you would have done the same thing. But you can't. Nobody cares.
Gentlemen, can we move on to the
Nobody cares.
gentlemen? Can we move on to the economy?
I care,
The
Joe.
economy,
I don't even know what he
I think
said.
it's fair to say recovering faster than expected from the shutdown
Much
This-
faster.
in the second quarter. The unemployment rate fell to 8.4% last month. The Federal Reserve says the hit to growth, which is going to be there, is not going to be nearly as big as they had expected. President Trump, you say we are in a V-shaped recovery. Vice President Biden, you say it's more of a K-shape. What difference does that mean to the American people in terms of the economy? President Trump, in this segment, you go first.
So we built the greatest economy in history. We closed it down because of the China plague. When the plague came in, we closed it down, which was very hard psychologically to do. He didn't
China plague, he
and he was
says.
wrong. And again, 2 million people would be dead now instead of still 204,000
He just
people.
pulls,
It's too much.
he just
One
pulls
person. is too much.
information
Should
just
have
out of
never
the air.
happened from China. But what happened
Come
is
on.
we closed it down and now we're reopening and we're doing record business. We had 10.4 million people in a 4-month period that we've put back into the workforce. That's a record the likes of which nobody's ever seen before. And he wants to close down he will shut it down again. He will destroy this country. You know, a lot of people between drugs and alcohol.
We wouldn't have had to shut down this
depression,
bad
when you
if he
start
would have
shutting
been
it
what
down,
was
you
right.
take a look at what's happening in some of your Democrat-run states where they have these tough shutdowns. And I'm telling you, it's because they don't want to open it. One of them came out last week. You saw that. Oh, we're going to open up on November 9th. Why November 9th? Because it's after the election. They think they're hurting us by keeping them closed. They're hurting people. People know what to do. They can social distance. They can wash. North Carolina, when you look, and these governors are under siege, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and a couple of others, you got to open these states up. It's not fair. You're talking about almost it's like being in prison. And you look at what's going on with divorce Look
At
at what's
least it
going
didn't
on
say
with
slavery.
alcoholism, drugs. It's a very,
Lord
very
help
simple
us.
thing. And he'll close down the whole country. This guy will close down the whole country and destroy our country. Our country is coming back incredibly well, setting records as it does it. We don't need somebody to come in and say, let's shut it down.
All right. Your 2 minutes, sir. Now move to
Just
you.
let those folks die. Just let all of them die.
Posing the question, the president says it's a V-shaped recovery. You say it's a K-shaped recovery. What's the difference?
The difference is millionaires and billionaires like him in the middle of the COVID crisis have done very well.
Thank you.
Another billionaires have made another $300 billion because
you.
of his
Talk about it.
profit tax proposal, and
Cut.
you only focus on the market. But you folks at home, you folks living in Scranton and Claymont and all the small
Talk about
towns
in
and working
Texas.
class towns in
There
America,
you go.
what are you doing? This guy
Right.
paid a total of $750.
There it
I knew that was coming. There you-
Sir, it's
It's
just
the wrong
yeah,
statement.
I understand. You've agreed to the 2 minutes, so please let him have it.
Do I get my time back?
Right.
The fact is that he has, in fact, worked on this in a way that he's going to be the first president of the United States to leave office having fewer jobs in his administration than when he became president. Fewer jobs than when he became president. First one in American history. Secondly,
Okay.
people who have lost their jobs are those people who have been on the front lines, those people who have been saving our lives, those people who have been out there dying, people who've been putting themselves in a way to make sure that we could all try to make it. And the idea that he is insisting that we go forward and open when you have almost half the states in America with a significant increase in COVID deaths and COVID cases in the United States of America. And he wants to open it up more. Why does he want to open it up? Why doesn't he take care of the American? You can't fix the economy until you fix the COVID crisis. And he has no intention of doing anything about making it better for you all at home in terms of
Right.
your health and your safety. Schools. Why aren't schools open? Because it costs a lot of money to open them safely. You know, they were going to give, his administration was going to give the teachers and school students masks. And then they decided, no, couldn't do that because it's not a national emergency. Not a national emergency. They've
Right.
done nothing to help small businesses. Nothing. They're closing. 1 in 6 is now gone. He ought to get on the job and take care of the needs of the American people so we can open safely.
All right. Your time is up, sir. We're going to get to the.
I
We're
have
going
to respond to that.
Well, you
Well,
both
no,
have
you
to.
don't. You had your 2 minutes first. You little 3-year-old.
People
That's
want
You're
right.
their-
just a child.
want their schools
Are
open.
you gonna? Are you gonna?
They don't want their state
Come
shut
on,
down.
Wallace,
They want
get
their
control of
restaurants.
the
I look at
debate.
New York, it's so sad what's happening in New York. It's almost like a ghost town, and I'm not sure it can ever recover what they've done in New York. People want their
Is he?
places open.
So right now, I do feel like Wallace. Could you stop being a limp noodle? How about you stand up?
They
How
brought
about you do your job?
back Big Ten football? It was me, and I'm very happy to do it. And
All right,
the people of
let's-
Ohio are very proud of me. And
Are you going to run this debate, or is he?
to your
Right.
economic plans going forward in a moment. But first, Mr. President, as you well know, there's a new report that in 2016, the year you were elected president, and 2017, your first year as president, that you paid $750 a year in federal income tax
Thank
each of
you.
those years. I know that you pay a lot of other taxes, but I'm asking you the
Like what?
specific question. Is it true that you paid $750 in federal income taxes each of those 2 years?
I paid millions of dollars in taxes, millions of dollars of income tax. And let me just tell you, there was a story in one of the papers.
Show us your tax
I paid $38 million 1 year. I paid
Show us your taxes.
Show us your tax
1 year.
returns.
I went.
Show us your taxes.
You'll see it as soon as it's
Yeah,
finished.
that's not happening.
You know, if you want to do, go to the Board of Elections. There's a 118-page or so report that says everything I have, every bank I have, I'm totally under leveraged because the assets are extremely good, and we have a very
Under leverage.
I'm asking you a specific
He's got
question.
so much debt.
I understand. all
He's
that. I understand.
Double,
all that.
triple leveraged.
No, Mr. President, I'm asking you a question. Will you tell us how much you paid in federal income taxes
We
in
don't know.
2016, 2017?
millions of dollars,
You paid
Millions
millions
of dollars.
So not
millions of
750.
dollars, and you'll get to
Not
see
a
it.
number.
You'll get to see it.
A round number is not a number.
Chris, let me just say something that it was the tax laws. I don't want to pay tax. Before I came here, I was a private developer. I was a private business people. Like every other private person, unless they're stupid, they go through the laws, and that's what it is. He passed a tax bill that gave us all these privileges for depreciation and for tax credits. We built the building and we get tax credits like the hotel on Pennsylvania Avenue. You get a massive, which by the way, was given to me by the Obama administration, if you can believe that. Now the man got fired right after that happened. But
Vice President Biden, you want to respond?
Yeah, I do want to respond. Look, the tax code that made him, put him in a position that he pays less tax than a school teacher makes on the money a school teacher makes is because of him he says he's smart because he can take advantage of the tax code. And he does take advantage of the tax code. That's why I'm going to eliminate the Trump tax cuts. And I'm going to eliminate those tax cuts and make sure that we invest in the people who in fact need the help. People out there need help.
But why didn't you do it over in the last 25 years?
Because you were president. Because you weren't president screwing things up.
You were a senator.
You're the worst president America has ever had.
Hey, Joe, let me just say, Joe, I've done in 47 months.
All right, Joe, I know it's hard, but stay the course.
We've done things that you never even thought of doing, including fixing the broken military.
Including letting 200,000 people die. Let's talk about it.
Forward, because, Mr. Vice President, your economic plan.
So fascinating. He hasn't spoken to the audience once. Trump hasn't.
Of course not. He can't. He has nothing to say.
He's like totally in Biden.
$4 trillion over a decade in new taxes on individuals making more than $400,000 a year and on corporations. President Trump says that kind of an increase in taxes is going to hurt the economy as it's just coming out of a recession.
Well, just take a look at what is the analysis done by Wall Street firms. Points out that my economic plan would create 7 million more jobs than his in 4 years, number one. And number two, it would create an additional $1 trillion in economic growth because it would be about buying American. That we're going to make this federal government spend $600 billion a year on everything from ships to steel to buildings and the like. And under my proposal, we're going to make sure that every penny of that has to be made by a
But respectfully, sir, I'm talking about taxes, not spending.
By the way, I'm going to eliminate a significant number of the tax. I'm going to make the corporate tax 28%. It shouldn't be 21%. You have 91 companies, in the Fortune 500 who don't pay a single penny in tax, making billions of dollars.
Why didn't you do it
billions
before
of dollars?
You were vice president with Obama.
Because you, in fact, passed that. That was your tax proposal.
I got it done. And you know what happened?
Yeah, you got it done.
Our economy boomed.
And
the
economy,
Mr. President, Mr. President, let me pick up on that.
Economy definitely boomed for the corporate elite and the 1%. And the mega millionaires. The economy totally booming for them.
Absolutely.
Economy booming. It turns out that in Obama's final 3 years as president, more jobs were created, 1.5 million.
He about to go off the rails.
It was inherited.
Has the slowest recovery economic recovery since 1929. It was the slowest recovery. Also, they took over something that was down here. All you had to do is turn on the lights and you pick up a lot. But they're the slowest economic recovery since 1929. Let me tell you about the stock market. When the stock market goes up, that means jobs. It also means 401ks. If you got in, if you ever became president,
401ks.
Terminate my taxes.
We need pensions. That's some old bullshit right there. They got them tricked all the way around.
And plenty of companies that are already here, they'll leave for other places. They will leave, and you will have a depression, the likes of which you've never seen.
Nobody has ever seen. That's his catchphrase.
Worst recession.
Everything, the likes of which you've never seen.
Has never seen.
To bring it back. We were able to have an economic recovery that created the jobs you're talking about. We handed him a booming economy. He blew it.
It wasn't booming.
It
wasn't booming. It was the weakest recovery since
Is it fair to say he blew it when there was record low unemployment before COVID?
Yeah, but because what he did, even before COVID, manufacturing went in the hole. Manufacturing went in the hole.
Excuse me, Chris. Wait.
Number two.
Chris.
Number three.
They said it would take. No, you're number two.
No.
Chris. They said it would take a
It's
miracle
hard.
to bring back.
That's what he's doing. Breathe. That's what he's designed to do, create tension,
That's all it is.
depression.
Yep.
He's a narcissist. He thrives off our negative energy and our pain, and it only
Well, he
makes you stronger.
creates chaos so people lose their
Yeah.
sense of, you lose your bearing
Yeah.
when you're so
Yeah.
busy being knocked off your center.
It's ever had
Right.
last year. Michigan had the best year they've ever had.
That is not
Many
true.
car companies came in from Germany, from Japan,
Not-
went to Michigan.
Not
and
true. Just keep saying it's not true. I got to catch straight. 4th of July.
Actually done.
That's what I should say. 4th of July.
Right. Mhm.
Trade deals are the same way. He talks about these great trade deals. You know, he talks about the art of the deal. China's perfected the art of the steal. We have a higher deficit with China now than we did before. We have the highest trade deficit
China
with
ate
Mexico.
your lunch.
All
Down
right, gentlemen,
18%.
in-
China ate your lunch, Joe. And no wonder
China
your son
ate your
goes in and
lunch.
he takes out.
What does that mean?
He takes out.
It's what a 5th grader says. Are you smarter than the 5th grader? No.
That's the bully. I'm gonna eat your lunch, Joe.
Right.
Just out of curiosity, the mayor of Moscow's wife gave your son $3.5 million.
Go straight to Putin. Go straight to Putin. You
Not-
would know. You've got really close friends.
$1,000.
Sir, you asked the question and an answer. If
None of that is true.
Oh, really? He didn't
Totally,
get
But no,
$3.5 million?
Mr. President,
it's
Mr.
totally,
President, please. Ask
totally
the question.
discredited. Totally discredited. And by the way,
Well, wait, he didn't get $3.5 million, Joe?
Mr.
Mr. Vice
He got
President.
$3.5 million.
it is not
He can't live up to that title. That's why he doesn't answer.
He has no self-control.
Mhm.
Well, you have raised an issue. Let the Vice President answer.
discredited.
Did
There was a
Burisma pay
report.
$185,000 a month with no experience and energy?
This is when we become homicidal, right?
Wrong at Burisma.
I think he did.
Mr.
The only
President,
guy that
let him
looks up-
answer.
He doesn't want to let me answer because he knows I have the truth. His position has been totally, thoroughly
By
discredited.
who?
And you
The media.
by everybody. Well, by the
By the
media,
media,
by
because they
our
refuse
allies,
to
by
talk
the
about it
World
because they're
Bank, by
embarrassed.
everyone.
Just,
As discredited.
mm.
Matter of fact,
Joe go home with a headache.
So let me ask you this, Joe.
Henry,
No, go ahead, Mr. I'm
I
listening to you.
feel like
You got $3.5 million from
Testified.
Moscow.
he testified under oath in his administration, said, I did my job and I did it very well.
Oh,
I did
really?
it
I'd like to know who
honorably.
they are.
Well, I'll give you the list
I'll
of the
fire
people who
them.
No,
testified.
no, go ahead, sir.
Sure, you've already fired most of them because they did a
Some
good
people-
job.
Some people don't do
Well,
a good
here's
job. With you,
Go
they
ahead.
say
You
a
get
good
the,
job.
wait a minute. You get the final word, Mr.
Well, it's hard to get any word in with this clown. Excuse me, this
Oh! Oh!
President,
that is simply.
Why did
not
he
true.
deserve $3.5 million from Moscow?
Look, here's the deal. We want to talk about families and ethics. I don't want to do that. I mean, his family we could talk about all night. His family's
My
already.
family,
No, no, let him go.
my
Let-
family
already
lost
wrote-
a fortune by
Go ahead.
coming down and helping
Go
us
ahead.
with
Go ahead,
government.
sir.
And that's
Every-
such
at
a.
the rate
Mr.
It's a
President,
nightmare.
One of them
Keep
lost
Wallace.
My family or his family. It's about your family.
They
The
didn't
American
make
people.
$3.5 million.
Thank you.
That's not
Thank
true.
you.
It doesn't want to talk about what you need. You, the American people. It's about you. That's what we're talking
Right.
about.
all right, that's the end of the,
Right.
that's the end of the segment. We're moving on.
It didn't take them.
Well,
Vice President, no.
Can I be honest? It's a very important
Try to be
question.
honest.
No,
He stood up.
No,
He stood up.
the answer to the
He
question is no.
Ukraine
No, sir.
with $1 billion.
Sir,
If you
That
get rid of
is
the
you know what, you're-
absolutely not
Stop.
true.
tape
You're-
doing it.
You're going to have,
Tape.
True.
gentlemen, I hate to
Mhm. Keep going, Joe. Just don't stand for it. He's just a liar.
Here's the deal.
Go send him to the corner. He time out.
We're going to go to the next segment. In that segment,
You see, he had to grab that though because he's losing. He can't stay above board. He has no integrity.
Yeah.
want. I'm going to ask a question about
Absolutely,
race,
yeah.
but if you want to answer about something else, go ahead. But I think that the country would be better served if we allowed both people to speak with fewer interruptions. I'm appealing to you, sir, to do that.
Well, and him too.
Well, frankly, you've been doing more
Oh,
interrupting
that's
than
all
you
right, but he does plenty.
Ooh.
have. Sir, less
There's
than
plenty.
no, less than you have. Let's please continue on. The issue of race. Vice President Biden
Hey.
say
Look,
that
look at, I know.
Trump's response to the
Mm,
violence
mm,
in
mm.
Charlottesville 3 years ago, when he talked about very fine people
Uh-oh.
on both sides, was what
Uh-oh.
directly led you
Ooh,
to launch this run for
fire
president.
question.
President Trump, you have often said that you believe you have done more for Black Americans than any president, with the possible exception
4th of July.
question for the two of you is, why should voters trust you rather than your opponent to deal with the race issues facing this country over the next 4 years?
He's
Vice
dead on
President
this
Biden,
one.
you go first.
Listen,
It's about equity and equality. It's about decency. It's about the Constitution.
They need to
And we
talk
have never
about why
walked away from
he is
trying to
he has
acquire-
put an order
acquire
out
equity for
that
everyone,
the federal
equality for the
government
whole
can no longer
America.
do.
But walked away
education.
from it like he has done. It is true. The reason I got in the races with those people, close your eyes. Remember what those people looked like coming out of the fields carrying torches, their veins bulging, just spewing anti-Semitic bile, and accompanied by the Ku Klux Klan. A young woman got killed. And they asked the president what he thought. He said there were very fine people on both sides. No president's ever said anything like that.
It is his
Right.
Now,
two
second,
minutes, sir.
Second point I'd make to you is that when Floyd was killed, when Mr. Floyd was killed, there was a peaceful protest in front of the White House. What did he do? He came out of his
He
bunker,
gassed
had
it.
the military use tear gas on him so he could walk across to a church and hold up a
Street.
Bible. And then what happened after that? The bishop of that very church said that it was a disgrace. The general
Come
who
on
was
now.
with him said all he ever wants to do is divide people, not unite people at all. This is a
Right.
president who has used everything as a dog whistle to try to generate racist hatred, racist division. This is a man who, in fact, you talk about helping African Americans. 1 in 1,000 African Americans has been killed because of the coronavirus. And if he doesn't do something quickly, by the end of the year, 1 in 500 will have been killed. 1 in 500 African Americans. This man is a savior of African Americans. This man cares at all. This man's done virtually nothing. Look, the fact is that you have to look at what he talks about. You have to look at
Right.
what he did. And what he did has been disastrous for the African American community.
So
President Trump, you have 2 minutes. Why should Americans trust you over your opponent to deal with
we
racism?
did a crime bill, 1994, where you call them super predators.
That doesn't actually say anything about you.
Never forgotten it, Joe.
No, sir, it's his 2 minutes.
So you did that, and they call you a super predator. And I'm letting people out of jail now that you have treated the African American population community, you have treated the Black community about as bad as anybody in this country. You did the 1990, and that's why if you look at the polls, I'm doing better than any Republican has done in a long time, because they saw what you did. You call them super predators, and you've called them worse than that. Because you look back at your testimony over the years, you've called them a lot worse than that. As far as the church is concerned, and as far as the generals are concerned, we just got the support of 250 military leaders and generals, total support. Law enforcement, almost every law enforcement group in the United States. I have Florida, I have Texas, I have Ohio, I have Portland. The sheriff just came out today and he said, I support President Trump. I don't think you have any law enforcement. You can't even say the word law enforcement, because if you say those words, you're going to lose all of your radical left supporters. And why aren't you saying those words, Joe? Why don't you say the words law enforcement? Because you know what? If they called us in Portland, we would put out that fire in a half
That
an
has
hour.
nothing to do with African
They're
Americans.
run by radical left
Not a
Democrats.
word.
In Chicago, if you look at any place you want to look,
Not
Seattle,
one word.
we were coming in the following day and they put up their
She
hands.
forgot the question.
Minneapolis.
He didn't forget it. He just ain't got no much more to say about it.
Right.
10 cities
I
are just
forgot.
about the
You know
top.
you're telling the truth. That was
Ain't nothing else to
TRUF
say.
truth.
There are many cases radical left, and they've got you wrapped around their finger, Joe, to a point where you don't want to say
So
anything.
ask him if he wants.
And I'll tell you what, the people of this country want and demand law and order, and you're afraid to even
Ooh,
say it.
no, we don't want law and
I
order.
want to return
I
to
don't
the
know what
question
people are
Abusing
talking
black
about.
people.
President Biden.
Stop
after
and
the
frisk.
Law and order
president
means more black people dead.
That's more, yeah, policing.
charge any of the police with homicide. You said it raises the question, quote, whether
Civilian justice
should be
bill.
equally applied in America.
Right,
Do you believe
Right.
that there is a separate but unequal system of justice for blacks in this country?
Yes, there's systemic injustice in this
Okay.
country, in
Go get it
education and
together.
work and in law enforcement and the way in which it's enforced. But look, the vast majority of police officers are good, decent, honorable men and women. They risk their lives every day to take care of us. But there are some bad apples. And when they occur, when they find them, they have to be sorted out. They have to be held accountable. They have to be held accountable. And what I'm going to do as President of the United States is call together an entire group of people at the White House, well, everything from the civil rights groups to the police officers, the police chiefs, and we're going to work this out. We're going to work this out so we change the way in which we have more transparency in when these things happen. These cops aren't happy to see what happened to George Floyd. These cops aren't happy to see what happened to Breonna Taylor. Most don't like it. But we have to have a system where people are held accountable. And by the way, violence in response is never appropriate. Never appropriate. Peaceful protest is. Violence is never appropriate.
All right.
What is peaceful protest? When they run through the middle of the town and burn down your stores and kill people all over the place?
That is not peaceful.
President Trump, I'm not asking.
But you say it is.
President Trump, I'd like to continue with the
Yes,
issue
go
of
ahead,
race. I
please.
promise we're going to get to the issue of law and order
Please.
in a moment.
Fine.
This month, your administration directed federal agencies to end racial sensitivity training that addresses.
Why didn't he
white privilege.
ask Trump that question?
Why did you decide to do that, to end racial sensitivity training? And
Ha!
do you believe that there
My
is systemic racism in this country, sir?
There is my
I ended
question.
it because
There
it's
it is.
racist. I ended it because a lot of people were complaining that they
What?
were asked to do things that were absolutely insane, that it was a
Be
radical
common and
a
decent.
revolution that was taking place in our military, in our schools, all over the place, and you know it, and so does everybody
What
else.
is radical?
And he would know.
What is
What?
radical
Totally
about
racist.
racial
What does
sensitivity?
that mean?
If you were a certain person, you had no status in life. It was sort of a reversal. And if you look at the people, we were paying people hundreds of thousands of dollars to teach very bad ideas and frankly very sick ideas. And really they were
What
teaching
bad ideas?
our country.
He-
And I'm not
He's
gonna
making it up, so he don't know. He's just making it
go
up.
back.
No, it means that white people act in white different ways. That's the bad
Our
idea.
country is a horrible
Yeah.
place. It's a racist place.
It
Can I
makes
tell
me
you-
uncomfortable.
It is.
No, this is Sesame Street. Can you count the number of superlatives in his sentence?
Racist.
Dare you to find a verb?
Yeah.
Let him finish.
The fact is that there is racial insensitivity. People have to be made aware of what other people feel like, what insults them, what is demeaning to them. It's important that people know they don't want to. Many people don't want to hurt other people's feelings, but it makes a big difference.
No, we need to dismantle white supremacy and racism in this country, Biden.
A sense of self-esteem.
Mm, mm,
It's a
mm.
little bit like how this guy and his friends look down on so many people. They look down their
Mm.
nose on people like Irish Catholics like me and grew up in Scranton. They look down on people who don't have money. They look down on people who are of a different faith. They look down on people who are a different color. In fact, we're all Americans. The only way we're going to bring this country together is bring everybody together. There's nothing we cannot do if we do it together. We can take this on and we can defeat racism
Vice
in America.
President Trump, sir.
During the Obama Biden administration, there was tremendous division. There was hatred. You look at Ferguson, you go to very many places. Look at Oakland. Look what happened in Oakland. Look what happened in Baltimore. Look what happened. Frankly, it was more violent than what I'm even seeing now.
Oh, my
But the
Lord.
reason
This
is that the
ridiculous.
Democrats that run these cities
Ridiculous.
don't want to talk like you about law and order.
Violent
And you
crime.
still haven't mentioned.
Violent
Are you
crime.
in favor of law and order?
I'm in favor of law. You follow
Are you
it
in
and a little
favor
bit
of law and order? Go
Yes,
ahead,
I'm in
say it.
favor.
You asked a question, let him finish.
Law and order.
Loses
Law
You
and
gotta
order.
let him.
Law and order with justice, where people get treated fairly.
Okay.
And the fact of the matter is, violent crime went down 17%, 15% in our administration.
All right.
It's gone up on his watch.
Went down
He-
much more
he
in
had-
ours.
All right, we're
He
not.
is
You're,
president of
Mr.
the
President, you're going
United
to.
States of
China,
America.
we
Mr.
were
President,
breaking every record in the
Mr.
book.
President, you're going to be very happy because we're now going to talk about law and order.
Places we had trouble were Democratic-run cities.
That's exactly my question.
Democratic-
There has been a dramatic increase in homicides in America this summer, particularly, and you often blame that on Democratic mayors and Democratic governors. But in fact, there have been equivalent spikes in Republican-led cities like Tulsa and Fort Worth. So the question is this really a party issue?
I think it's a party issue. You can bring in a couple of
You
examples
think everything is a party issue?
going on in Chicago where 53 people were shot and 8 died. Shot. If you look at New York, where it's going up like nobody's ever seen anything, the numbers are going up 100, 150, 200% crime. It is
Wow, y'all.
going up. And he doesn't want to say law and order because he can't, because he'll lose his radical left supporters.
Wow.
And once he does that, it's over with. But if he ever got to run this country and they ran it the way he would want to run it, we would have, our suburbs would be gone. By the way, our suburbs.
White people would be killed by black people in the streets, in your little white suburbs, in your gated communities, like you've never seen. That's what he means. That's dog whistle politics right there. That's that dog whistle politics. That's that. Was it a hand coming after the black hand coming after the white person for Harvey Gantt? I don't remember that image. Do you know that image that I'm speaking to?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what this is. Same thing.
Same car happened any time in the past. What really is a threat to the suburbs and their safety is his failure to deal with COVID. They're dying in the suburbs. His failure to deal with the environment. They're being flooded. They're being burned out because his refusal to do anything. That's why the suburbs are in trouble.
I do want to talk about this issue of law and order, though. And in the joint recommendation that came from the Biden-Bernie Sanders task force, you talked about, quote, reimagining policing.
Yeah.
First of all, what does reimagining policing mean? And do you support?
It means,
let me, if I might finish the question, what does reimagining policing mean? And do you support the Black Lives Matter call for community control of policing?
look, what I support is the police having the opportunity to deal with the problems they face. And I'm totally opposed to defunding the police officers. As a matter of fact, local police, the only one defunding, and his budget calls for a $400 million cut in local law enforcement assistance. They need more assistance. They need, when they show up for a 9/11 call, to have someone with them as a psychologist or psychiatrist to keep them from having to use force.
Psychiatrists ain't going on call. No, I tell you that.
Have to have
They're not getting up out their bed.
Where the officers people in the
Tell
community.
it, Alicia.
That's when crime went down.
I know. And psychologists getting out of that call. You're going to have your counselors in the community.
That's not what
That's
he's talking about defunding the police.
That is not true.
He doesn't have any law support.
Look,
He has no law enforcement.
That's not
support.
true.
Almost
That's
nothing.
not. Look.
Oh, really? Who do you have? Name one group that supports you. Name one group that came out.
Don't go down that rabbit
hole.
hole.
Go ahead.
Don't go down that rabbit hole.
We don't have time.
All right.
Stay focused, Biden.
All right.
Name one law enforcement group that came
I
out.
think-
Don't let him bully you into nothing,
And
Biden.
I want to get to another subject, which is the issue
Biden's
of
like
protest
moderator. Would you moderate?
turn violent in Oregon,
Please.
especially. We have more than
Every time he
100
extends his hand, he's like, "Would you moderate?"
Would you do something with this?
protests. Many of those turned into riots. Mr. Vice President, you say that people who commit crimes should be held accountable. The question I have, though, is as the Democratic nominee, and earlier tonight you said that you are the Democratic Party right now, have you ever called the Democratic mayor of Portland or the Democratic governor of Oregon and said, hey, you've got to stop this, bring in the National Guard, do whatever it takes?
Why would he
but you
need to do
stop
that? Say no.
it in Portland?
I don't
Say
hold
why?
office now. I am
Mm.
a former
right.
vice president. I've made it clear.
He doesn't have that
I
power.
made it clear in my public statements that the violence should be prosecuted. It should be prosecuted, and anyone who commits it
But
should
you've
be
never
prosecuted.
called for the people,
He's never
the
said
leader, excuse me, sir. You had never called for the leaders in Portland and in Oregon to call
Because
bring in the National Guard and knock off.
Why would he do
100 days
that?
line.
He's not in office. He doesn't have power to call National Guard.
Oh, really?
Here's the
But
thing.
I sent in the
wait, I
U.S.
asked him a
Marshals
question.
to get the killer of a young man in the middle of the street, and they shot him. And
Right.
for 3
This
days,
President Trump,
Portland
President
wouldn't do
Trump,
anything. I
please
had to send in
interrupt
the U.S. Marshals.
President
They took
Trump.
care of business.
Go ahead, sir.
Keep going.
By the way, his own former spokesperson said, riots and chaos and violence help his cause. That's what this is all
Mm.
about.
I don't said that.
I do.
Mm.
I think Kellyanne Conway.
I don't think she said.
She said that.
I don't-
And so here's the
All right.
well, here's the point.
Go
The
ahead.
point is
Mm.
that that's what he is keeps trying to rile everything up. He doesn't want to calm things down. Instead of going in and talking to people and saying, let's get everybody together, figure out how to deal with this. What's he do? He just pours gasoline in the fire constantly, every single solitary
Okay,
time.
end this, button up this segment. I'm going to give you a minute to answer, sir. You have repeatedly
Well, wait, I
criticized.
have to answer his
No,
statement.
you have
His statement?
repeatedly.
Wait,
You have
just one
no.
second.
You've been talking.
You
back
made
and
a
forth.
statement.
I'm
He does
asking you.
not
you know,
understand the
sir,
rules of
I'd love
engagement.
to-
No,
you know,
he
if you
does
wanna
not
switch-
understand the word no.
The National Guard, it would be over. There'd be no problem.
Okay.
But they don't want to accept the National Guard.
You have repeatedly criticized the vice president for not specifically calling out Antifa and other left-wing
That's right.
extremist groups. But are you willing tonight to condemn white supremacists and militia groups
Woo!
and
Good
to
question.
say that they need to
What are
stand
juju
down
beans?
and not add to the violence in a number of big cities, as we saw in Kenosha and as we've seen in Portland?
Sure,
Are you
I'm willing
prepared
to
to
do that,
specifically
but
do it? Well, go ahead, sir.
I would say almost everything I see is from the left wing, not from the right
So
wing.
what do you
If
what do you say?
I'm willing to do anything. I want to see
Well, then
peace.
do it, sir.
Say it. Do it. Say it. You want to call him? What do you want to call him? Give me a name. Give me a
White
name. Go ahead.
supremacists and
Who would
white
you like me to condemn?
white supremacists and right
Proud
militia.
Boys, stand back and stand by. But I'll tell you what. Somebody's got to do something about Antifa and the left, because this is not.
Hey,
a
wow.
race.
Can't do it.
That's not a condemnation.
Go ahead.
White supremacists. Antifa's an idea, not an
Oh,
organization.
you got it.
Not militia. That's what
Okay,
his
it's an idea.
his
Okay.
FBI director
Gentlemen,
said.
Well, then you know what? He's
No,
wrong.
we're done, sir. We're moving on to the next.
Everybody-
We're
When
moving.
a bat hits you over the head, that's not an idea.
Everybody in
Antifa
your
is bad.
administration tells you the truth has a bad
Can I
idea.
tell you what?
You have no ideas. that are-
Antifa is a dangerous
All right,
radical
gentlemen, we're
group,
now moving on to the Trump
and
and
you ought to be
Biden
careful with
records.
them. They'll overthrow you.
When a president, I'm going to ask a question. When the president seeks a second term, it is generally a referendum on his record.
Was he like this last time he debated? Because I didn't watch any of that.
Sayings,
Oh,
which
my
is
God.
don't compare
He
me to the
was
Almighty.
But he's
Compare me to the
he's
Almighty.
worse.
And in this case, sir, you are
He's
the
worse.
alternative. Looking at both of your records, I'm going to ask each of you, why should voters elect you president over your opponent? In this segment, President Trump, you go first, 2 minutes.
Because there has never been an administration or president who has done more than I've done in a period of 3.5 years. And that's despite the impeachment hoax. And you saw what happened today with Hillary Clinton, where it was a whole big con job. But despite going through all of these things where I had to fight both flanks and behind me and above, there has never been an administration that's done what I've done. The greatest, before COVID came in, the greatest economy in history, lowest unemployment numbers. Everything was good. Everything was going. And by the way, there was unity going to happen. People were calling me for the first time in years. They were calling and they were saying, it's time maybe. And then what happened? We got hit, but now we're building it back up again. A rebuilding of the military, including Space Force and all of the other things. A fixing of the VA, which was a mess under him.
I'm
308,000
just disgusted.
because they didn't have proper
I
health.
mean, I'm going to vote, but this
We now
is
got a
like
91% approval rating
the
at the
soul of
VA.
our country really needs a 180
We've
degree turn.
rebuilt our military. The job that we've done, and I'll tell you something, some people say maybe the most important. By the end of the first term, I'll have approximately 300 federal judges and Court of Appeals judges, 300, and hopefully 3 great Supreme Court judges, justices. That is a record, the likes of which very few people, and you know one of the reasons I'll have so many judges? Because President Obama and him left me 128 judges to fill. When you leave office, you don't leave any judges. That's like, you just don't do that. They left 128 openings, and if I were a member of his party, because they have a little different philosophy, I'd say if you left us 128 openings, you can't be a good president. You can't be a good vice president. But I want to thank you because it gives us almost, it'll probably be above that number by the end of this term.
I'm sir.
300 judges. It's a record.
Looking at both your records, why should voters elect you president as opposed to President Trump? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Under this president, we become weaker, sicker, poorer, more divided, and more violent. When I was vice president, we inherited a recession. I was asked to fix it. I did. We left him a booming economy, and he caused a recession. With regard to being weaker, the fact is that I've gone head to head with Putin and made it clear to him we're not going to take any of his stuff. He's Putin's puppy. He still refuses to even say anything to Putin about the bounty on the heads of American soldiers.
Your son got
No,
$3.5 million.
That's right.
Mm.
By the way,
Mr.
my
President,
son,
wait a minute. Mr. President, your campaign agreed to both sides would get 2-minute answers uninterrupted. Well, your side agreed to it. And why don't you observe what your campaign agreed to as a ground rule, okay?
he never keeps his word. Can
Because-
you add
No,
back
no,
He's
I'm not
a
asking.
person that's
That was a
not-
rhetorical question.
Can you
Go
add
ahead,
back
sir.
30 seconds?
Yeah, yes,
Okay.
you may have.
All right.
Go ahead.
So, thirdly, we're poor. The billionaires have gotten much more wealthy by a tune of over $300 to $400 billion more just since COVID. You in the home, you got less. You're in more trouble than you were before. In terms of being more violent, when we were in office, there were 15% less violence in America than there is today. He's president of the United States. It's on his watch. And with regard to more divided, the nation can't stay divided. We can't be this way. And speaking of my son, about the military, the way you talk about them being losers and
You
being
never served.
and just being suckers. My son was in Iraq. He spent a year there. He got the Bronze Star. He got the Conspicuous Service Medal. He was not a loser. He was a patriot, and the people left behind there were heroes.
Really?
And I
Are
resent.
you talking
like
about
hell.
Hunter? Are you talking about
I'm
Hunter?
talking about my son, Bo Biden. You're
I
talking
don't know.
about.
I don't know, Bo. I know Hunter.
Yeah, you know Bo.
Hunter got thrown out of the military. He was thrown out, dishonorably discharged
That's not true. It
for
wasn't
cocaine
dishonorably.
use. And he didn't have a job until you became vice president. Once you
None of
became
that
vice
is
president,
true.
he made a fortune in Ukraine, in China, in Moscow,
That is
and
simply
various
not
other
true.
places. He
My
made
son-
Mm.
and he didn't have a job.
My son,
Wallace, stop
like a lot
it.
of people we know at home, had a drug problem. He's overtaken it. He's fixed it. He's worked on it, and I'm proud of him.
But why was he
proud of
given
my
tens
son.
of millions?
Wow.
He wasn't given
All right.
10. That is totally, totally
President Trump,
discredited.
we've already
Totally
been
discredited.
we've already been through this. I think the American people would rather hear about more substantial
So do I.
subjects.
Ashe.
As the moderator, sir, I'm going to make a
I know, but when
judgment call
somebody
here.
gets $3.5 million
Okay,
from
right.
the
Let's
mayor
talk
of
about-
Moscow,
Let's talk about
That report is totally
Why did he
discredited.
I
Mitt Romney on that committee said it wasn't worth taxpayers' money, that report. It was written for political reasons.
you know, I'd like to talk about climate change.
So would I.
Okay.
Mm.
The forest fires in the West are raging now. They have burned millions of acres. They have displaced hundreds
It is.
of
Oh
people.
my God, yes.
When state officials there blame the fires on climate change, Mr. President, you said, I don't think the science knows. Over your 4 years, you have pulled the U.S. out of the Paris Climate Accord. You have rolled back a number of Obama environmental records. What do you believe about the science of climate change, and what will you do in the next 4 years to confront it?
I want crystal clean water and air. I want
And they need to sweep their floors.
carbon. If you look at our numbers,
Yeah.
we are doing phenomenally. But I haven't destroyed our businesses. Our businesses aren't put out of commission. If you look at the Paris Accord, it was a disaster from our standpoint. And people are actually very happy about what's going on because our businesses are doing well. As far as the fires are concerned, you need forest management in addition to everything else. The forest floors are loaded up with trees, dead trees that are years old, and they're like tinder, and leaves and everything else. You drop a cigarette in there, the whole forest burns down. You've got to have forest management.
What do you
You've got to
Okay, I posted it. I've decided. This debate is basically,
I believe that we have to do everything we can to have immaculate air, immaculate water, and do whatever else we can. That's
no,
going to
no, you
plant
don't. You don't believe any of those things. You've done none of those things. You're just a liar.
It's very exciting. for a
believe
lot of
that-
You're
people.
poisoning everything. You're
Pollution,
you're
gas-
fracking.
Gas emissions contributes to the global warming of
I
the
think a
planet.
lot of things do, but I think to an extent, yes. I think to an extent, yes. But I also think
No,
we
he
have
doesn't
to
even
do
believe
better
in climate
management
change.
of
Oh
our
my.
forests. Every year, I get the call, California's burning. California's burning. If that was cleaned, if you had forest management, good forest management, you wouldn't be getting those calls. You know, in Europe,
I think I said this debate is basically a 3-year-old nagging an imperfect teenager trying to do their homework.
He said, sir, we have
Wow.
streams that are far more, they ignite much easier than California. There shouldn't be that problem. I spoke with the governor about it. I'm getting along very well with the governor. But I said, you know, at some point, you can't every year have hundreds of thousands of acres of land just burned to the ground.
But, sir,
That's burning down because of a lack of
but sir,
management.
if you believe in the science of climate change, why have you rolled back
He's
the
yet to
Obama
answer that
Clean
question.
Power Plan, which limited carbon emissions in power plants? Why have you relaxed?
Because it was driving energy prices through the sky.
Why have you relaxed fuel economy standards that are going to create more pollution from cars
Well,
and
not
trucks?
really, because what's happening is the car is much less expensive and it's a much safer car. And you're talking
It's all about the money.
difference. And then what would happen because of the cost of the car, you would have at least double and triple the number of cars purchased. We have the old slugs out there that are 10, 12 years old. If you did that, the car would be safer. It would be much cheaper by
But in the case of
$3,500.
California, they've simply
No, but you
ignored
would take a
your
lot of cars
rollback.
off the market because people would be able to afford a car. Now, and by the way, we're going to see how that turns out. But a lot of people agree with me, many people. The car has gotten so expensive because they have computers all over the place for an extra little bit.
A lot and many is not a number.
And I'm okay
Well,
with
that's all he can give you because you don't have any numbers. You don't have any facts. You don't have any knowledge.
But what they've done in California is just
All right.
crazy.
Vice President Biden, I'd like you to respond to the president's climate change record, but I also want to ask you about a concern. You proposed $2 trillion in green jobs. You talk about new limits, not abolishing, but new limits on fracking, ending the use of fossil fuels to generate electricity by 2035, and zero net emission of greenhouse gases by 2050. The president says a lot of these things would tank the economy and cost millions of jobs.
He's absolutely wrong, number one. Number two, if in fact, during our administration, the Recovery Act, I was in charge, able to bring down the cost of renewable energy to cheaper than or as cheap as coal and gas and oil. Nobody's going to build another coal-fired plant in America. No one's going to build another oil-fired plant in America. They're going to move to renewable energy, number one. Number two, we're going to make sure that we are able to take the federal fleet and turn it into a fleet that's run on their electric vehicles. Making sure that we can do that, we're going to put 500,000 charging stations and all of the highways that we're going to be building in the future. We're going to build an economy that in fact is going to provide for the ability us to take 4 million buildings and make sure that they in fact are weatherized in a way that in fact they'll emit significantly less gas and oil because the heat will not be going out. There's so many things that we can do now to create thousands and thousands of jobs. We can get to net zero in terms of energy production by 2035. Not only not costing people jobs, creating millions of good paying jobs, not $15 an hour, but prevailing wage, by having a new infrastructure that in fact is green. And the first thing I will do, I will rejoin the Paris Accord. I will join the Paris Accord because with us out of it, look what's happening. It's all falling apart. And talk about someone who has no relationship with foreign policy. Brazil, the rainforests of Brazil are being torn down, are being ripped down. More carbon is absorbed in that rainforest than every bit of carbon that's emitted in the United States. Instead of doing something about that, I would be gathering
Look at
up and
his
making
face.
sure we had countries of the world coming up with $20 billion and say, here's $20 billion, stop tearing down the forest. And if you don't, then you're going to have significant economic consequences.
What about the argument that President Trump basically says that you have to balance environmental interests?
I hung in there to almost the end.
on his-
Girl, I'm worn out though.
He still, for example, make sure that methane's not a
'Cause-
problem.
'cause it's watching
you can now emit
toddlers.
more methane without it being a
It
problem.
is. It is. This is daycare. Thank you.
This is America. America's doing what you're doing right now, Peyton. They're either doing this
Says that.
or they're doing this.
But here's the tragedy. The tragedy is the fact that what we're seeing is being replicated. People are that they're beginning to act in ways that is uncharacteristic, like stuff that keeps getting caught on video
Yeah.
camera.
Well, you know, that's actually always been in their spirits, right? I feel like it's always been here. They had been
But
maybe holding back a little bit
This
it's
is
because they've been
exponentially
killing us and
worse.
lynching us. Yeah,
in our country.
I think it's increasing. I think it's getting more attention, but I think a lot of
Yeah.
it was there. You know,
Oh,
you remember our
absolutely.
brother.
He didn't bring
you know,
it in.
they. Girl,
But people are
I
just
mean, we
doing
can
it.
get rid of Trump, but he's just the top of the
Oh,
mountain.
but he's out. I mean, he has pulled back. I mean, he's opened Pandora's box.
Yeah,
So the
of
question
course.
the president is saying, some people who support the sounds cost a lot of money and hurt them.
What it's going to do is going to create millions of jobs. The fact is, it's going to create millions of good paying jobs.
Ah.
And these tax incentives to people for people to weatherize, which he wants to get rid of.
What is going on?
It's going to make the economy much safer. Look how much we're paying now to deal with the hurricanes. By the way, he has an answer for hurricanes. He said maybe we should drop a nuclear weapon on them. They may.
I never said that.
That's
at all.
what he did say.
You made it up.
And here's the deal.
You make up.
We are going to be in a position where we can create hard, good jobs by making sure the environment is clean and we all are in better shape. We spend billions of dollars on floods, hurricanes, rising seas. We're in real trouble. Look what's happened just in the Midwest with these storms that come through and wipe out sections and counties in Iowa. They didn't happen before. They're because of global warming. We make up 15% of the world's problem. We, in fact, but the rest of the world, we got to get them to come along. That's why we have to get back into the Paris Accord.
All right, gentlemen,
You know,
Chris, so why didn't he do it?
he's
7
actually
years?
talking
You were
about
vice
real
president.
issues. I appreciate it. Our end. I just want Trump to shut up. But I do appreciate Biden still talking about the Paris Accord.
And by the way,
Yeah.
he made a couple of statements. The Green New Deal is $100 trillion.
That is not
20
my
billion.
plan.
That's
The Green
well, you
New
want to
Deal
rebuild every
is not
building.
my plan.
Oh my God, look at this, y'all. Jesus.
He made a
These
statement
are the
about
leaders of
military. He said,
America.
he and his friends made it up, and then they went with it. I never said it.
Okay,
That is
What
not
he
true.
did is he
you're done in
said
this segment.
he called
Mr.
the
Vice-
military
Mr. Vice
He
President.
stupid
is,
bastards.
he's lit now.
He said
Mr.
stupid
Please,
bastards. He
Sir,
said it.
stop.
He did not. Oh my God.
Play it.
Go ahead. Mr.
You're on
Vice
tape.
President answered his final question.
The final question is, I can't remember which of all his rantings.
I'm having a little trouble myself, but this question of what it's going to cost.
The economy.
I mean, the Green New Deal and the idea of what
Having a little.
Chinese will do.
The Green New Deal will pay for itself as we move forward. You're not going to build plants that, in fact, are great polluting plants.
But do you
You're going to
support
build
the Green New Deal?
Pardon me?
You support
No, I don't support the Green
Oh,
New
you
Deal.
don't? Oh, well, that's a
You're
big
not-
statement.
I
That
support
means you
the
just
plan.
lost the radical left.
I
That's
support,
done.
I support
Oh, you
the
don't?
Biden plan that I put forward.
Okay.
The Biden plan, which is different than what he calls the radical Green New Deal.
All right, gentlemen, final segment. Election integrity. As we meet tonight,
Uh-oh.
millions of Americans are receiving mail-in ballots or going to vote early. How confident should we be that this will be a fair election? And what are you prepared to do over the next 5+ weeks? Because it'll not only be to election day, but also counting some ballots, mail-in ballots after election day. What are you prepared to do to
I'm having it.
American
Okay.
next
He's driven me to drink, y'all.
Uh-oh.
winner of this election in this final segment? Mr. Vice President, you go first.
Prepared to let people vote. They should go to iwillvote.com, decide how they're going to vote, when they're going to
Oh
vote, and what it
man,
means
it's
by
a
which they're going
shot
to vote.
night.
His own Homeland Security Director, and as well as the FBI Director, says there is no evidence at
Take
all
no chaser, y'all. Woo!
source of being manipulated and cheating.
Oh
They said that.
boy.
The fact is that there are going to be millions of people because of COVID that are going to be voting by mail-in ballots, like he does, by the way. He sits behind the Resolute desk and sends his ballot to Florida, number one. Number two, we're going to make sure that those people who want to vote in person are able to vote because enough poll watchers are there to make sure they can socially distance. The polls are open on time, and the polls stay open until the votes are counted. And this is all about trying to dissuade people from voting because he's trying to scare people into thinking that it's not going to be legitimate. Show up and vote. You will determine the outcome of this election. Vote, vote, vote. If you're able to vote early in your state, vote early. If you're able to vote in person, vote in person. Vote whatever way is the best way for you, because he cannot stop you from being able to determine the outcome of this election.
That's right.
And in terms of whether or not when the votes are counted, and they're all counted, that will be accepted. If I win, that will be accepted. If I lose, it'll be accepted. But by the way, if in fact he says he's not sure what he's going to accept, well, let me tell you something. It doesn't matter, because if we get the votes, it's going to be all over. He's going to go. He can't stay in power. It won't happen. It won't happen. So vote. Just make sure you understand you have it in your control to determine what this country is going to look like the next 4 years.
Very
Is it going
good,
to
Joe.
change? We get 4 more years of these lies.
Look at how unhappy he was when he was talking about how much power Trump didn't have.
Joe,
Yeah.
talking about a transition. There's been no transition from when I won. I won that election. And if you look at
I stole it.
Hillary Clinton, if you look at all of the different people, there was no transition because they came after me trying to do a coup. They came after me spying on my campaign. They started from the day I won and even before I won, from the day I came down the escalator with our first lady.
Right.
We're a disaster,
Right.
disgrace to our country, and we've caught them. We've caught them all. We've got it all on tape. We've caught them all. And by the way, you gave the idea for the Logan Act against General Flynn. You better take a look at that, because we caught you in a sense, and President Obama was sitting in the office. He knew about it too. So don't tell me about a free transition. As far as the ballots are concerned, it's a disaster. A solicited ballot. Okay, solicited is okay.
Steven
You're
lies.
soliciting,
Stop
you're
people
asking, they
voting.
send it back, you send it back. I did that. If you have an unsolicited, they're sending millions of ballots all over the country. There's fraud. They found them in creeks. They found some with the name Trump, just happened to have the name Trump just the other day in a waste paper basket. They're being sent all over the place. They sent 2 in a Democrat area. They sent out 1,000 ballots. Everybody got 2 ballots. This is
He
going
said,
to be
stand back and stand by, didn't he?
November 3rd, you're watching and you see who won the election. And I think we're going to do well because people are really happy with the job we've done. But you know what? We won't know. We might not know for months because these ballots are going to be all over. Take a look at what happened in Manhattan. Take a look at what happened in New Jersey. Take a look at what happened in Virginia and other places. They're not losing 2%, 1%, which, by the way, is too much. An election could be won or lost with that. They're losing 30 and 40%. It's a fraud and it's a shame. And can you imagine where they say you have to have your ballot in by November 10th? November 10th. That means that's 7 days after the election, in theory, should have been announced.
Okay.
We have major states with that.
Sir,
All run by
2 minutes
Democrats.
is 2 minutes.
All run by Democrats. It's
President
a,
Trump,
it's a rigged election.
you're going to be able to continue. You have been charging for months that mail-in balloting is going to be a disaster. You say it's rigged, that it's going to lead to fraud. But in 2018, in the last midterm election, 31 million people voted mail-in voting. That was a quarter, more than a quarter of all the voters that year cast their ballots by mail. Now that millions of mail-in ballots have gone out, what are you going to do about it? And are you counting on the Supreme Court, including a Justice Barrett, to settle any dispute?
Yeah, I think I'm counting on them to look at the ballots, definitely. I don't think, I hope we don't need them in terms of the election itself. But for the ballots, I think so. Because what's happening is incredible. I read today where at least 1% of the ballots for 2016 were invalidated. They take them, we don't like them, we don't like them.
But what are you going to do about it if there are millions of ballots going out right now?
What you do is you go and vote. You do a solicited ballot, and that's okay, or you go and vote.
I'm asking you about the fact that millions of people.
You go and vote. You go and vote. Like they used to in the old.
Millions of people.
You either do, Chris, a solicited ballot where you're sending it in, they're sending it back, and you're sending. They have mailmen with lots of it. Did you see what's going on? Take a look at West Virginia, mailmen selling the ballots. They're being sold. They're being dumped in rivers. This is a horrible thing for our country.
There is no.
This is not.
There is no.
This is not
evidence of
going to
that.
end well.
There is
Okay.
no
This
evidence
is
of that.
not going
Vice
to
President
end well.
Biden,
Five states
fact,
have had
go ahead,
mail-in ballots for the last decade or more. 5, including 2 Republican states. And you don't have to solicit the ballot. It's sent to you. It's sent to your home. What we're saying is, they're saying is that it has to be a postmark by the time, by
He
election day.
said, stand back and stand by
It still should be counted.
That's
about the white supremacists.
Counting the votes. because
You're
of the
wrong.
outcome.
You're
Wait,
wrong.
no, I want to continue with you on
I
this.
love you.
Vice President Biden.
Stand by.
Excuse me. Vice
You know what that
President
means, don't you?
Biden,
Stand
Oh,
by, like
yes.
just wait.
Years with
Uh-huh.
mail-in voting
Dog
has
whistle.
not been fraud historically. It has been that sizable numbers, sometimes hundreds of thousands of ballots are thrown out because they have not been properly filled out, or there is some other irregularity, or they missed the deadline. So the question I have is, are you concerned that the Supreme Court with a Justice Barrett will settle any dispute?
I'm concerned that any court would settle this, because here's the deal. When you get a ballot and you fill it out, you're supposed to have an affidavit. If you didn't know, you have someone say that this is me. You should be able to, if in fact you can verify that you, before the ballot is thrown out, that's sufficient to be able to count the ballot because someone made a mistake and not dotting the correct I. Who they voted for, testify, say who they voted for, say it's you. That is totally legitimate.
All right.
Excuse me,
No, no, no.
when you
I
have
have a final-
80
I-
million
Gentlemen,
ballots
I have a final
sending and
question.
swamping the system, you know it can't be done. You know it can't, and already
All
it's
right,
been
so now
fraud,
Mail service
deception.
delivers
wait a minute, gentlemen, final question is,
80
in
million
8
ballots.
states, we can keep talking.
It's
In
a-
8
it's a
states,
disgrace.
election workers are prohibited currently by law, 8 states, from even beginning to process ballots, even take them out of the envelopes and
Yes.
flatten them until election day. That means that it's likely, because there's going to be a huge increase in mail-in balloting, that we are not going to know on election night who the winner is, that it could be days, it could be weeks,
Could be months.
until we find out who the new president is. First for you, sir, finally for the vice president, I hope neither of you will interrupt the other. Will you urge your supporters to stay calm during this extended period, not to engage in any civil
That's a
unrest?
softball
will you
question.
not-
Watch you
that
miss
you
it.
not declare victory until the election has been independently certified? President Trump, you
I'm
go first.
urging my supporters to go into the polls and watch very
I
carefully.
told you he was gonna mess it up.
I am urging them to do it.
Okay.
As you know,
Watch
today
very
there was a big
carefully.
problem. In Philadelphia, they went in to watch. They were
Voter
they're called poll
intimidation.
watchers. Nice thing. They were thrown out. They weren't allowed to watch. You know why? Because bad things happen in Philadelphia. Bad things. And I am urging my people. I hope it's going to be a fair election. If it's a fair
You're urging
election,
them what?
I am 100% on board.
And what are they
But
supposed to
if
be
I see
watching?
the ballots being manipulated, I can't go along with that. And I'll tell
And
you what,
does that
from
mean?
a common
Go along?
sense,
Does that mean
I'll
you're
tell you what
your
it means.
people to take to
It
the
means you
street?
have a fraudulent election. You're
And what are
sending
you
out
gonna do?
80
And
million
what would you
ballots.
do
They're
about that?
not equipped to, these people aren't equipped to handle it. Number one. Number two,
Okay.
they
Mm.
cheat.
They most certainly are equipped. They do elections every year. You sorry, upper.
3 days ago, and they all had the name
All right.
military ballots. They were military. They all had the name Trump on them.
Vice President
think
Biden,
that's good?
Vice President Biden, final question for you. Will you urge your supporters to stay calm while the vote is counted? And will you pledge not to declare victory until the election is independently certified?
Yes, and here's the deal. They count the ballots, as you pointed out. Some of these ballots in some states can't even be opened until election day. And if there's thousands of ballots, it's going to take time to do it. And by the way, our military, they've been voting by ballots since the end of the Civil War, in effect. And that's what's going to happen. Why is it for them somehow not fraudulent? It's the same process. It's honest. No one has established at all that there is fraud related to mail-in ballots, that somehow it's a fraudulent process.
It's already been established.
Take
Take a look at Carolyn Maloney's race.
I
in
asked
Manhattan.
you had an opportunity
Look
to
at
respond.
Carolyn Monroe.
Go ahead.
They have no idea what
Vice
happened.
President Biden, go ahead.
He has no idea what he's talking about. Here's the deal. The fact is, I will accept it, and he will too. You know why? Because
Because he got no
once
choice.
the winner is declared after all the ballots are counted, all the votes are counted. That'll be the end of it. That'll be the end of it. And if it's me, in fact, fine. If it's not me, I'll support the outcome. And I'll be a president, not just for the Democrats. I'll be a president for Democrats and Republicans. And this guy,
I want to see an honest ballot count.
Gentlemen,
There's 2
will you
minutes.
say that's the end? This is the end of this debate.
Honest ballot count.
We're
He
going
ended
to
it.
leave it there. To be continued as in more debates as we
Exhausted.
go on. President Trump, Vice
I
President
tell you,
Biden,
They need to mute his
Yeah.
damn mic when he's talking.
They do. And I wish they had the
Great
ability
idea,
to do
Aaron.
that.
engage, and we want to thank
Great
Case Western
idea.
Reserve University and the Cleveland
Listen,
Clinic for
y'all,
hosting
thanks for
this.
letting me watch the debate with y'all.
Sponsored by the
Yes.
Commission on
Oh,
Presidential
yeah.
I
Debates.
just want to
This is
say,
a
you know, I think the only thing I have to say was
In
that
Salt
was
Lake
gross.
City,
2 white men, 3 white men
Kamala
yelling at each other.
Pence and Senator Kamala Harris will debate at 9 p.m. Eastern that night. We hope you watch.
The moderator
Thank you.
kind of sucked. He did the best he could, but you could tell he was getting irritated at the end.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Well, I must
You
say
know.
that of all the people I could have thought to have been the moderator, I think at the moment he was the best pick because Chris Wallace calls balls and strikes, right?
Yeah.
And his role, you know, was to not lean one side or the other. We all knew that, you know, the president was just going to be this unruly 3-year-old. I think
Yeah,
everybody
yeah.
walked into it already expecting that. And I
Yeah.
think that he did, you know, a relatively
Best he
decent
could
job.
do in the
And,
circumstances.
you know, I mean, I think there were times he had this Freudian slip saying, you know, hey, basically, you keep interrupting. Like your team said you was going to act like you had some sense. Can we do
I
this,
don't even
please?
think that was a Freudian slip. He's just like
I
calling the
mean,
rules in order. He's just
well,
naming the rules. These
I
are
mean,
the
but-
guidelines. How many
Well,
times
I
you gotta say that? It's crazy.
Well, the thing was, is that the Freudian slip was, he said, well, you keep doing it more. That's not like Chris Wallace. Chris Wallace really tries to go straight down the middle. He really
But that
tries
was the
not to
truth.
lean
Why
whatever.
isn't
It was-
the truth going
It
down
was
the
100.
middle?
It was 100% true. Now we already know what the tomorrow's storyline is going to be. He knocked it out the park. It was the best debate ever seen in history. Nobody's ever debated
Oh my God.
before.
It was the
You know,
greatest of the
just
greatest.
ever. You know, yeah. And everybody's going
Millions
to spin it.
billions of people emailed him and told him
Right,
how much
right.
they loved
They
him.
This
watch
is
just
perfect.
because of me.
Right.
Yes. Yeah.
But at the end of it, I'm hoping that it was a highlight of, do you want 4 more years of this? Like for people to say,
we have another debate.
this election is going, I don't know if they're going to tune in because this was just dizzying. This was dizzying, you know. But I hope they were tuned in and to underscore the importance of voting. It's not about who's going to run the country. It's about now it's time for you to stand up and shape your own government. You need to stand up and get involved on every level. I don't care if it's, you know, getting out there running for dog catcher. It doesn't even matter at this point. Like everybody has to now take up arms of a voice, of a platform, and let's begin to right these wrongs. We are going back. This is civil rights all over again. We are there. I don't know if you heard the tape of from the video from the Breonna Taylor thing that came out, where the guy was saying he was going to stick the dog on the boyfriend. To me, that was Birmingham civil rights. I mean, in my mind, I saw that when they did the hoses and the dogs. This is where we are. This is
Well, I mean, you know, we were
ridiculous.
talking the other day. The if you think about the conditions that we have as Black people, we have negative wealth. We have about the same amount of wealth and less land than we did when we came out of being enslaved.
But
You know, and so it's like
gotta
the
own some
legacy
stuff.
around this has been long, and I feel like it's not a new. To me, the technology, I think, is making things more available and accessible. And I think that because of the heightened attention to these issues, this stuff is coming out more. But I really feel like they've been doing this. It just hasn't hit its pinnacle.
Our news cycle was not this fast. And plus now you've got the disinformation spreads. I mean, almost like a malignancy, right? But on some level, we do have to move away from my vote doesn't count. Because I got some folks like that in our family that think that too. It's like everything counts. If you even look at the numbers of who didn't even show up, not just who voted for him, but who didn't even show up. There were a lot of areas in Wisconsin and Colorado, where it shouldn't have gone that way. I mean, those margins were slim. And all it takes for us to get up out of our slumber and to get up and be empowered, even if it's just to inform people, like you were doing, Toshiba, at your last one, and getting people to understand this bill and break it down. Let's not be asleep all our lives. I mean, truly, we're going to have to wake up, and we now cannot depend on our government, that we now have to become a part of it on some level.
I agree with that. I
Ladies.
also think that we have to say more than voting, though. We got to tell people that voting doesn't
Absolutely.
change our conditions. They got to do much like a vote. They got to organize. They got to run.
They got
to train.
engage.
They got
They
to
got to
study.
engage.
They
Yep.
got to canvass. They got to protest. They got to make phone calls. This idea that voting by itself is going to change anything is
No,
misleading.
and then
People
you
think
sleep for 2
I'm a
years.
vote,
No.
and you just get to no. We have to do the work.
Yeah.
365
Politics
days
is local.
a year.
So you got to
Exactly.
get local. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's
All right,
so it's
thank
really
you.
about doing the work, and that work
Everything.
consists of voting, 1, 2, being involved in everything government, and
Well,
it's
first
about,
being informed.
yes, and
Because
being,
we don't, I mean, because I kind of, when you said, Toshiba, you were calling out even some of these Democratic candidates, like, don't take anything for granted. We need
I
to
say,
know
yeah.
who our candidates are and call them out. And what are you going to do? You don't just get to get in office because you got a D in front of your name or behind
Yeah.
your name or somewhere
Yeah.
in your name.
You have
It
to hold
doesn't
them
even
accountable
matter.
after we vote.
Absolutely.
and
Hold them
that's
all
where,
stick to
that's
the
the
fire.
vein and where I am
Yeah.
right now, and what I've been sharing, even with Democratic people that I'm speaking with. I'm just, even up into senators. I was just talking to one the other day, and I said, listen, I'm no longer voting for people just because we're part of a party, because I'm tired of the neutrality. I'm tired of folks toeing the line versus standing up completely for what's right, progressing us into what's right. I watched a board, and Aaron was there back in 2008 and 9. I watched a school board flip in Wake County, and I watched those people do exactly what they said they were going to do, and they did it in a short time, and they are still remnants of what they did to this day. And the people who, when it flipped the 2 years later, right, and the other party took control of it, you still kept some of the foolishness. Why? You did not progress and use the same methods in which they progressed to change the system the way they wanted it. So we can't continue and sit idle by. I'm no longer doing that. I'm calling a spade a spade. I'm standing up for what is right. I'm calling you out on it. You can be my friend. You can be whatever you want to be. But I no longer can allow people to sit by, not enforce policies, not even create policies that's going to help my Black sons not be harassed by police officers, and they're doing and minding their own business. It is not fair that people like us are active in our communities, do what we're supposed to do. We try to train our children in the same way, for public officers to sit back and idly watch people's lives destroyed and won't get off their dairy air and connect with people who write policy to change things if they don't know how to do it themselves.
Mhm.
So I'm sorry.
Well, we got to build
Look,
power to be able
We
to do this, though. We have to build organization and power. I mean, one of the things is there's a lot of advocates, and we need organizers that are pouring, like you said, sister, this sharing this information and knowledge and skill and training, right? Because we need to build an army, and because this ain't coming down, with 2 or 3 people doing press conferences by themselves, which is a lot of what we like to do in Wake County. I mean, in other places, it's so it's hard work, but important work.
And it's ongoing. It's like you said, it's not one and done.
No, I mean, this election is over. The next one is coming. We got the primary coming up.
That's
we
right.
got those elections in early 2020.
And I think that that's something that we probably have not done well with within our culture is educating on the importance of the primary process. And people just saying, well, I'll just wait and whoever win and I'll just vote to that person. But I mean,
All the way
evil
around,
is
yeah.
pervasive, and it's not just behind
Getting
one
it
letter.
early is easier. Getting it early in the cycle is
Absolutely.
easier than
Something
getting it
here,
later.
Absolutely.
and
Yeah.
it's two things.
You guys, I have got.
So one thing for my internet's cutting up. But you said something. You talked about you said something about wealth, and you're talking about this the unity of coming together. One of the things that I'm trying to do with the Overflow.network is trying to bring people together in unity from all organizations so we can know who you are and disseminate your information and get people to be a part of organizations doing certain types of work. So we know who we are, know who our allies are. And then the other part of working with trying to train people in the Black community who want to create wealth. What does it look like to build some type of self-power within your own financial stability and within our businesses, and learn how to make some changes in those particular areas? And so I've had some people, the naysayers are always like, well, Black people don't want to do this, they lazy and this. I said, listen, I'm not concerned about lazy folks. I'm concerned about the people who want to work but don't know how to connect with people. The everyday, there's a lot of people that I come in contact with that desire to be a part of something, but don't necessarily know where to go or who to be a part of it that's truthful.
Right.
And that's just not doing something to be doing something. So listen, you ladies are amazing. Thank you so very much for watching the debate together and having a little bit of conversation about it. I appreciate you so much.
Guys.
We've been live the whole time, and so we're gonna end our live. Just want to say thank you so much, and I'm gonna stop the stream, but I love you guys. Erin, thank you so much.
You're welcome, dear. I ended up staying so much longer. I was only say 30 minutes, but the debate started going. I was like, all I'm gonna do is watch it anyway by myself, be yelling at the screen the whole time, cussing at the screen.
Yes,
might as well be able to cuss with other people.
This has been Talking with T. Rice. We've been telling the truth. And as always, everybody, have a positive